Dear colleagues, good evening. We are very happy to see all of you in this room at the opening ceremony for the new Ukrainian institution Index, the Institute for Documentation in Exchange. I'm Sasha Dovzhik and I'm the Index Program Director. Welcome, dear participants. I am Oля Polunina, and I have the pleasure to be the operational director of Index. And before we start, I would like to make you acquainted with some technical details for our event. So the event will be taking place in Ukrainian, and suppose you do need interpretation into English, please, you can take the headsets in the room and get the translation into English. Suppose we have an alarm, the volunteers and our team will show you the way to the shelter. We will stop the event and we will continue it in a safer place. The shelter is located side by side to this building at the Ivan Franko National University of Lviv. It's always difficult to announce cases of air alarm, but unfortunately it's easy for me to do it now because last Wednesday, as you know, Lviv lost 7 civilians, peaceful residents of Lviv who died as a result of the missile attack, Russian missile attack. And Russia is killing not just our defenders at the front line, but it's also killing our intelligence, our elite. The family of Myroslava Bazilovich, who is a direct descendant of Ivan Franko, perished almost fully last Wednesday. So let us start this event with a minute of silence to commemorate all those who have perished as a result of this genocidal war. Thank you. For a start, I would like to tell a couple of general words about the institution that we are launching today and the institution that we're welcoming today. This is the Institute for Documentation and Exchange that is being established in Ukraine for the sake of supporting the Ukrainian cultural intelligent avant-garde, for the sake of developing contacts and connections with our colleagues from all over the world, and definitely also for the documentation needs to document our experiences and the events of this war. We will focus on the achievements of our founding institution, which is the Institute for Human Sciences, IWM from Vienna. For more than 10 years, they have been supporting Ukraine and they have been keeping our experiences and our cases in the focus of their attention and in the focus of attention of the global community, thanks to such programs as Ukrainian-European Dialogue, which enables Ukrainian researchers to go to Vienna to do their research, to develop their contacts with colleagues from all over the world, and to expand those horizontal networks that fully support us in resisting the Russian aggression those days. I would also mention Documenting Ukraine program, which has become the response to the full-scale invasion of Russia. And it was already in February 2022 that the co-founder of the program, Professor Timothy Snyder and Dr. Catherine Younger, came to understand that documenting of our experiences and creation of the sustainable chronicles is an urgent need. And I think that the idea back then was to fund several tens of Ukrainian projects, but instead we can see that it's more than 300 projects as for now, and I'm really happy to see the grantees of the Documenting Ukraine program in this room together with us. The third year of the Russian full-scale war, the 11th year of the Russian war against Ukraine, means that it's high time that we went beyond the framework of such quick aid provision, assistance provision programs. We need to start thinking about development of institutions. Generation by generation, we in Ukraine have to start everything anew because we are living in the context of eradication of institutional context and continuity of our institutions, but we are overcoming those barriers thanks to the creativity and resistance. An index is created for us to be able to develop our future, not only following the principles of resistance and creativity, but also on the basis of the principle of sustainable institutional capacity and work. We are very happy that we have an opportunity to speak today in this context about any sustainability. And I would also like to mention that this vision of sustainable future that we have is definitely based on the vision of justice, and our vision of our idea of justice is based on the preservation of the evidence of what we are experiencing now. It's based on the creation of the true and reliable, authentic chronicle of the war. And our task for the time being also is to think about the justice that would go beyond this picture or image of Russian war criminals behind the bar. It's more about epistemological and historical justice. Our stories need to be shared, need to be stored for the researchers of the future generations to have access to them. And with this in view, Index will be dealing with the development of a sustainable and safe archives that will enable our experiences to be heard during decades and to be transferred on to the next generations to come. This work is not possible without intellectual interaction. That's why we will also work on that. We will try to create centers of intellectual interaction in Ukraine for Ukrainian elite representatives, for cultural figures of Ukraine, to be able to work to store this evidence and to interact with their colleagues from abroad. And then their pieces of evidence will point us the way to the future. That's why probably we have called this event the Index of the Future. The index is actually a kind of a guidance, a marker that shows us sustainable future based on the principles of justice, and that's exactly the future we would want to show you and to point to. And now we would like to go over to the most pleasing part of the party, which is acknowledgements, because our existence would not have become possible without a number of institutions and people to whom we are really grateful. Oля? Thank you. So first of all, let me express our joint gratitude to all of you for coming to this ceremony today to share the joy related to the establishment of the new institution and to share our inspiration. And I need to express my gratitude to the Institute for Human Sciences from Vienna. It's a great pleasure and honor that Mr. Grain and Katerina Hazen and Anastasia Kovac, Maria Shenkarenko are present here. Also, I would like to express our gratitude definitely to Professor Timothy Snyder and Dr. Catherine Younger, Without their ideas, this institution would never have been established. I would also express my gratitude to some institutions and people without the effort of which we wouldn't be able to start our existence, which is the Center for Urban History and Victoria Amelina's family. You know, Victoria Amelina also perished a year ago as a result of the Russian missile attack. Thanks a lot for helping us to launch our work. I would also like to express my gratitude to Lviv City Council, which has provided communication support to us. And the last but not least, I would like to express our gratitude to our information partners like the Khartiia Radio and the Armed Forces of Ukraine, thanks to which we have this opportunity to be standing here on the stage and to be launching our institution. And let me ask you, suppose you still want to donate to the army and to the activity of the Radio Khartiia, you can do it using the QR code, which you can see here. And let me encourage you to do this. Thank you for coming. Let me invite. Без зайвих зволікань дозвольте мені запросити зараз людину, and let me invite the person whose name has been mentioned several times, but his vision is the inspiration for us, and he has a direct connection to the establishment of Index. This is Professor Timothy Snyder, who will deliver a mini lecture in Ukrainian, which is an extreme pleasure and honor for us. I hope you can hear me now. So I will be seated because I will need to use my notes. And you've been told that this event is taking place in Ukrainian. This is not exactly true. Probably there will be a part of the speech delivered in Ukrainian. This will be my Ukrainian. And the fact that this is possible is not because I speak Ukrainian. That is because the Ukrainian nation is highly tolerant to foreigners speaking Ukrainian. So let me share some of my ideas with you regarding what Index is and why do we need our Index. Why do we need to establish this institution? Why do we need this index? In the Bible, there are some words like, look and you will find. But that's not exactly that simple. Index is an indicator, a guidance, which exists for you to be able to look for something and to find something, because historically everything is lost in space and time. There was a Polish writer, Tadeusz Borowski. He was in Auschwitz, and he had his high education, and he said that he thought that all this education and all the things told to us in the education process is lies. This is lies told by several generations. And I think that now, when we are launching Index, we are launching the period of radical, drastic changes. And it's also lies, because, you know, facts do not arise by themselves. Traditions need to be built on a daily basis. Mr. Borowski, while staying in Auschwitz, he said that Germans would win the war, and if Germans do win the war, we will not exist there, and there will be no memory left of us or any of us. I mean, those people staying in Auschwitz. But Germans did not win the war. That was not the fact. They lost. But anyway, almost everything was forgotten. So even in the best case scenario, even if Russia loses, we will need to work actively on the preservation of our memory. Well, in fact, the future, or rather in the future, we will need history. But history is created here and now. Without any work, without any documentation, without active engagement, and this is exactly what Index and a lot of our partners will do, there will come no history for the future. And for us, it's not natural because we think that obviously we will remember, but that's not true. That's not the case. It will be difficult to keep those memories. It seems to us now that yes, we will definitely remember this war and the world needs to remember this war. But historically, it will never happen that way. Unfortunately, our index is called the way Sasha said. My translation probably will be worse, but it's called the Institute for Documentation and Exchange. Інститут документування і взаємодії. So it's about documentation and interaction or exchange. Documentation, both documentation and exchange of meetings are necessary if we want to have some memories left, and if we want history to be stored for the future generations. For history to generally appear, we need to be actively looking for facts, and we need to be doing this together. That's why we've got this name for this institution, the Institute for Documentation and Exchange. Things get lost in space and time, which means that we do need documents and we do need exchange of information. How can we lose an event? How can an event get lost in time? How can it happen so that we will not remember something? Unfortunately, that may really happen, and we can take the example of the Holodomor, which all of you know quite well. Beyond the borders of Ukraine, the phenomenon of the Holodomor has not been stored in memory because there have almost been no documents, there has almost been no exchange of information. And even during the Holodomor abroad, people like Milena Rudnitska, people who were trying to document something and to share the information about the Holodomor were ignored, and the information they provided was ignored. We can also take the example of the Stalin terror. Victoria Amelina was so much afraid of the repetition of the Stalin terror. She realized that facts do not appear from scratch. We need to organize our work well to have those facts. And we can take also the example of Gulag. Few Ukrainian memories from Gulag. In general, few memories of Gulag.
And you can possibly think that that's the only Soviet past event, but no, it's not like that. It's not the case. Julius Malin have written the memoirs about the Holocaust being in Israel in 1447, and these memories were published 2 years ago only. Another example, the Holocaust itself. Now we tend to think and perceive as a genocide of the Jews as the tragedy which is remembered. But it is not the case. Also, it's not very simple also. In Warsaw Ghetto, Emanuel Ringelblum, the sociologist, he was working as a sociologist in ghetto. He was doing the quizzes and sociological studies. Why? Because he wanted literally to dig into the ground these results for them to be found later on in the future. And she could. It was a great luck. And thanks to that, it was never as Borowski was thinking. It never happened as he was suspecting. Not only the German version of the events were known, became famous into the world. No. But for Israel and for all the events to be famous, to become famous and known in the world, he had to carry out this work in ghetto back then. And another example, the Soviet regime and Ukrainian dissidents, they understood that documentation is needed and something that is evident should be recorded. For the George Orwell itself, according to the George Orwell itself, it was the most difficult. What is obvious now, we need to record, because tomorrow or after tomorrow, it's not going to be obvious anymore. And what's obvious, it's very difficult for us to explain and express. Some intellectual work is needed here. So this is the way I describe what Index is doing, and here, and this is what defines a few methods of our documentation of our activities. For example, try to document, try to record your everyday life, have the archive, the procedure, and to use certain talents and disciplines. Ukraine now is a free country, so everything is possible, but not without specific and focused work. Lots of Ukrainians do understand that, but us here at Index, to be able to collaborate with them, to assist them, we are here to help Ukrainians. This tradition, this great tradition on documenting, that Index is based on. But also I would like to speak about not that famous tradition. It's a tradition of meetings and exchange. 42 years ago. Hello. You already missed the best time. It's already behind us. So 42 years ago, in Vienna, there was Institute for Human Sciences in Vienna established, and basis to these institutions were the necessity to carry out meetings between East and West, between the descendants and the students from the West, and their interactions. So from this tradition, the conferences have arisen. And during Maidan in Kyiv, from that tradition arose the program 10 years ago Ukraine in European dialogue. And starting from, as Sasha already mentioned, starting from the full-scale invasion in Ukraine, this program of documenting the history of Ukraine, where hundreds of Ukrainians already obtained the subventions, the journalists, the students, historians. One of my friends, Catherine Younger, unfortunately she's not here now, but I have all of our team here from Vienna, Nastya, Katya and Misha. I'm very glad to see you here, and I'm glad that you're here with us. And I'm extremely grateful that Ola and Sasha start this new phase of our common collaboration. But for me, this tradition is very important. This local tradition, the Vienna tradition, is also very important. Why? Because from this tradition comes our new tradition index. So this index comes from the smaller traditions in place, and our index will be there to be able to find the truth, the human truth, the different truth, the multi-voice truth, the factual truth, but also the justice, the just truth, to commemorate those who survived and those who perished. There is no future without the monologue, and upon this past, to be able to create the future, we have to work now and today. And this is our goal for me and our partners. And this is what's the goal for our index. Thank you. Thank you very much. And now, that's a great honor for me to invite to our discussion the poet, the defender of Kharkiv, our military man, Serhiy Zhadan. As all of us believe, also our future, the winner of a Nobel Prize. Serhiy, please welcome here on the stage. And the moderation of this discussion will be held by journalist and Vice President of Ukrainian PEN, Myroslava Barchuk. If you can check your mics, please. 1, 2, 3, can you hear me? I think probably everyone can hear me. Serhiy? Good evening, dear friends, good evening. Good evening, and I'm glad to see you here. I'm glad that we are so numerous. And first of all, I would like to congratulate the Index team with official opening. I wish you strength, I wish you inspiration, I wish you endurance to be able to accomplish your extremely important mission. Thank you very much. And I would like to start. My questions won't be easy. I will develop my conversation. I will be the devil's advocate today. A little bit based on the negation and denial. First question about the documentation and the evidences, our witnesses. I understand how important it is to give evidence, to be a witness, but since we all started here with this 1 minute of silence, we understand that our meaning of justice, our notion and concept of justice is based on the idea that we know what is right. Ukrainian society is extremely exhausted, and we have this feeling that the world allows this genocidal war to happen. We are shocked by the reluctance of the international organizations. We see the full blockade of the UN Council of Security Council. We see that Mongolia do not keep up with the international with the Constitutional Court, International Criminal Court, and we are asking ourselves: does the world need this justice? Our experience for us to dig our witness, our records deep into the ground, as you mentioned. What is your advice to the Ukrainians that are already lost hope? And they already lost. But first of all, it's also authentic Ukrainian voices. And these voices also need to be heard and need to be documented. As we say, our work, it's about documenting the war, but it doesn't mean that we only need to record what is beautiful or simple. No, we need to document Ukrainian society as it is. And for future Ukrainians, your complicated experience wouldn't be forgotten. Second of all, I think from another side, because I'm not denying what you have just said, but I think it's also very important that the people from the West that have been here in Ukraine, visited Ukraine, almost always they have another perspective. So if you have experience, your direct experience with Ukraine, for the person from the West, the Westerners, having personal contact with Ukraine, they have another vision. And these are different people from different political groups. Third, and it's evident, and I'm not saying that everything is beautiful here. No, it's not beautiful at all. But it's also obvious that now Ukrainians have a great voice now, the voice to be heard in the world. And it's louder than 20 years ago, 15 years ago. And Ukrainian voice really exists in the world and it's heard. And the thing is that we are very slow on hearing. Yes, that's true. And sometimes it takes us time to hear those voices. But we will. I think this is my answer, and it's not perfect, of course. Serhiy Zhadan, what's your opinion? What do you answer to the people that are closer to the front line? I would say that if we talk about the justice, the world has to remember that the justice is not something the matter of fact. It's not stable, and it's not something that we can address to in the morning, for example, waking up first thing. But when we think about the war, if we talk about the electricity, for example, in Ukraine, lots of people have to do something, do some repairments, establish some communications to make sure that everything works here and for us to have the electricity in the evening. This is the justice as we see it. We want to have this justice, and we definitely have to do something to have it. And we have to understand that the justice is the result of certain decisions, efforts, and actions. And the president that you mentioned, Putin, I don't think that he ever flies himself to Hague. It's impossible to imagine this type of result. Certain procedures have to take place to make it possible. As for Nazi Germany, the Nuremberg process had to have place in order to justice to prevail. But of course, we have our emotional evaluation, we have our own truth, our own vision of truth, our desperation, our fatigue, our anger, our stubbornness. But these are the emotions, only emotions that change quickly. And for those who are lost, I urge them to remember, to recall, how did you feel at the beginning of war 2 years ago, 3 years ago? And I'm sure that in major cases, people won't be able to restore this emotional state that they had at the beginning of war. But it's very useful for the self-reflection to keep yourself in this equilibrium, not to burn out, not to lose yourself. And it's also needed for the justice, for that justice we are talking about, to have the justification in the future via the records of these crimes that we see nowadays. And yes, I understand here completely that we are tired. There are people that lose their hope and they lost their orientation. But this is why it's very important to remember about your daily routine, about your daily work. Because this consequence, this chain of events and our chores we have during the day won't be just a fiction or some abstract image, but it will be reflected in the not only in the declarations and on written paper, but we eventually will see that the criminals will be punished and the justice will be restored. This is how I see it. Thank you. But my question was about the justice and the truth. And the next question is about the lie. As Mr. Timothy said, that the lie doesn't arise from nowhere. Somebody has to work on it. Somebody spreads these lies and spread the seeds of lies in somebody's memories. I recommend you to. I read recently the article of the scientist from London, and she says that the topic of Ukraine already disappears from the pages of the Western media and cultural discourse. Discussion and so on. We talking for the last few days. We are discussing this film of the Russian director, the lady about the Russian soldiers, and in the media, in our social networks, we see a great discussion about that, around that. How is it possible for this director to create that film and this film to be shown in the Venetian Biennale? My question is, do you also have this feeling of the Ukrainian topic disappearing from the Western media?
Yes, let's get back to this question. There is no justice without facts, and facts do not exist without hard work, and there is no hard work without proper organization. And justice is a highly abstract concept, but in the end, we should understand that we should probably work more locally on a more local basis, and that's definitely something that we would like to do via Index. If we're talking about the presence of Ukraine or Ukrainian culture or Ukrainian voices in the West, I disagree with that. When I compare the situation of the current days with the situation 2 years ago, I would say that we can see a dramatic change and change for the better, which means that Ukraine is now a normal country. It's considered to be a normal country by the West. It exists. And this is a very positive change. Well, certainly it's not absolutely the way I would like it to be or you would like it all to be, but that we can see a drastic change. And it's not the case mm, that Russians actually wanted to have it. Russians were thinking that we don't have any presence of Ukraine in the West, and that's why, for that reason, they could easily destroy the Ukrainian nation also in physical terms. But it's not the case. Ukraine is just a normal society. It's perceived as a normal country with its own rights by the West, and has the right to contest Russia. And you mentioned the Russian movie. Yes, it's a shame, but 5 years ago, there would even be no debate about that because Ukrainian voices were much, much weaker. Serhiy, would you like to give the answer to this question or shall we move on? Yes, I would like to respond. Myroslava, both in your first and in the second questions, you were talking about our despair, about our indignation and lack of perception of the ideas that are disseminated in the world. We are saying that there is a dead end, the world end is not listening to us, is not hearing us, and we have to stay face to face with the aggressor. Well, that's true, but besides that, there is one thing that can easily be accounted for by the current context. This is the reality that really manifests and reveals a number of emotions, and it's not always the case that you can be thinking logically. But if we are talking about a strategy or any constructive vision of this situation, this would mean that we will have to anyway build a certain logical strategy as to what we're going to do. Over these 2 years and a half, Ukrainians have got accustomed to being heard. We have had an opportunity for having a monologue, but good communication and interaction presuppose a dialogue and not a monologue, and we are not yet ready for that. What we need is to explain our truths, explain why we are indignant about everything, why we are angry, why we are furious and scared, why we have exhaustion, why we have fatigue. It's all about us. That's true. I'm ready to talk about me, but I'm not ready to hear what I'm told in retort, in response. And it seems to me that this is the problem Ukraine is going to face in the nearest future, in the period of transition. We normally call it as the disappearance of Ukraine from the agenda in the world. Ukraine is not disappearing, but the world also needs to have a chance to respond somehow, to move on with this dialogue. And that's more a question to the Ukrainian side. Are we ready to really have this dialogue, to listen to the response, not just to be heard and to shout out, cry out, whatever you want to, but to be convincing and to hear something in response. It's much easier just to show your emotions. But when you have a dialogue, you need to kind of restrain yourself. And it's difficult to ensure this restraint in the context of war. It's very difficult to think a little bit strategically. But otherwise, we are doomed to failure. And if we want someone to hear us, we need to get readjusted in terms of our speech receptors. And we need to try and become more convincing, more filled with arguments and more clear. And again, that is a matter of time and a matter of some distance, but I agree that to what Timothy mentioned at the beginning, this is exactly the work that needs to be done here and now. As far as documenting, recording, reporting, journalistic activity is concerned, and as far as collection of data is concerned, and processing, analysis of this data and delivery of the data, that is exactly something that needs to be done today. Because otherwise, tomorrow we may turn out to be in the situation when somebody else will tell something instead of us, for us, and we will think that we do have a monopoly for those emotions and feelings, but that's not the world is structured. We may ignore the structure of the world, but it's better not to ignore it, but to use it for our own
Дякую.
benefit. Thank you.
Мені дуже подобається, що Сергій
I really
сперечається з моєю
like
позицією, я навмисно кажу з позиції
that
тих людей,
the fact that Serhiy is objecting to what I said. No, I'm not objecting.
насправді
I'm really talking from the position of fatigue that a lot of us are in. We are all trying to be fully spirited and inspired, but I can really see it and hear it from many managers, and cultural figures who go to the West and speak there to the public. Well, from them, I can really see that they have to reserve themselves, to restrain themselves, not to fall into hysterics, for us not to be blamed of hate speech or over emotional discourse. It's on purpose that I'm speaking from the point of view of these people to hear your arguments. Yes, we are talking about lies, but we tend to forget a very simple thing, that the art of lies is a great art, and Russians are very skillful at that art. And we understand that they have this war based on lies. We cannot pretend that it's not the case. And your mention of the movie fits well into it all. But we think that it's just enough for us to have our truth, to share it, and then this ephemeral, elusive justice will just come and will have a triumph, and we will not need to explain our truth. But in fact, it doesn't work that way. The truth is also all about a lot of daily work. You need to do it on a daily basis. It's sometimes trivial, sometimes obvious, but if you don't do it, it's like removing a dust in the apartment. Otherwise, if you don't remove the dust in the apartment, you will reach the stage of capital repairs. You know, I have some daily life metaphors, down to earth metaphors today. Anyway, what I wanted to say is that we need to deal with this, with the explanation of the truths on a daily basis. And it seems to me that our society and country, which I'm separating as you see, but I'm not trying to make them two opposing parties. So the most powerful combination is with the synergy of society and the state. So our society and our state, to a major extent, then still don't have some sustainable strategy in terms of how we are presenting ourselves. And that's why we are facing all those issues of hate speech and our closed nature, our isolated nature. We are told whom to communicate with and whom we should not communicate with, what position we should stick to and what stance we should not take. But we forget that quite often we're not even participating in the game. We are participating in the game somewhere beyond the field. We are thinking whether to participate in the discussion or not, but we have not even been invited to participate in. It's the same as when we are ready or not ready to ignore participation in some forums or some events, but we forget that we have not been invited there. It seems to me that there should be a clear and transparent strategy at the level of the state, at the level of cultural and societal institutions, and also at the level of individual practices of our journalists, reporters, and opinion leaders, our artists. We are all ambassadors of the whole country as for today. Our privacy, our subject matter nature is very relative, because no matter where you go, whenever you tell that you're from Ukraine, it broadens the context right away. And that puts you into the position of a person behind whom there is a whole country which is at war. And whether you start speaking on behalf of the country or whether you don't speak on behalf of the country, you keep silent and you remain anonymous, well, all that is about your conscious stance. There are some periods in history when we are all deprived of our own independence and lack of engagement. This is not good, this is not bad. Well, it's bad in a way because it requires a lot of effort from you, but that's what the situation we are in. I understand that probably Timothy has also got additional comments and something to add to what Serhiy Zhadan is saying. Yes, probably. Sorry? No, that's fine. Just a joke. But let me ask a question which I guess everybody is concerned with. At least this is a very important question as for me. I would like to hear your answer. We've got a lot of discussions in the society, in particular among writers and public intellectuals, as to whether we should speak out on the same platforms as Russians do. Liberal Russians who at least call themselves liberal or positive Russians. So what do you think of that? We are really interested in hearing your opinion. Should we be talking about experience and conveying our truths when side by side with us on the stage we have Russians? Well, I will probably start with my own opinion, and let me also partially answer all the questions that you have asked so far. It seems to me that the, the spirit of the Documenting Ukraine program and the spirit of the Index program is all about creation. So I wouldn't like to speak about that all the time, and I would not like to speak about anger all the time. I would rather mention that whenever we have an opportunity to create something, the voice of Ukrainians will become better heard, and it will help us communicate with the world. So that's what is meant. Index is not meant to show anger, to show emotions, and to show the emotions of the day. Index is about giving a platform for Ukrainians, artists, journalists, writers, all Ukrainians, an opportunity to self-expression. That's what we meant, and that's a different thing. That is not a response to the West. There can be no response to the West, and that is not response to Russia, a reaction to Russia. We are focused on making Ukrainian voices better heard. We need to provide better opportunities for Ukrainian voices. I'm answering your question, but it seems to me that we should focus on the positive thing. It's not about reaction or response. It's about building up something new. It's about construction, building up the Ukrainian voice. Regarding the questions whether we should speak on the same stage as Russians or not, well, it's difficult for me to give the answer because I'm not in Ukraine and I cannot tell you what you should do with Russians. I understand what your intuitive reflexes are, but I also know a lot of Ukrainians who now speak to Russians, but they don't they don't tell other Ukrainians that they do it. Well, yes, I can see even here in the room we do have people like that who talk to Russians but never share this information with others. This is a phenomena that we are currently facing. One or two? Okay. But it seems to me that after some time, every single Ukrainian will start thinking who he wants to talk to and who he doesn't want to talk to. It's not easy. Everything is not that easy. You have the first talk with Russians, and then something may change. It's my own vision. It's not the prospect for Ukrainians, but my point of view is as follows. We do have Russians who need you need your voices. This doesn't mean that you need to help them, but there are Russians for whom your help and assistance would matter. I would formulate it that way. Serhiy, would you like to give your answer? Well, I'm a Ukrainian. It's easy for me to speak about that. Well, definitely you should not speak at on the same stage. You should block any contacts with Russians. Well, that's it. And let me try to explain what I mean by that. For this not just to be considered to be some brave populistic phrases. The point is that we understand that we are fighting not bad Russians and not Russians supporting Putin, not good Russians, not Russians who are not certain about their stance. We are fighting the Russian Federation, so all the citizens of the Russian Federation should be responsible for that war. So I don't think that we can have any classification of Russians to know whom you should speak to and to whom you shouldn't speak to. Otherwise, you're just ignoring the crime of Russians and trying to take this crime out of the legal field. Before this meeting, we had a talk with Timothy, and I just asked him, do you imagine any discussion with the Russian historian after the war? Just imagine that the war is already over and Russian historians appear at international conferences. They will definitely appear. The same as Russian poets will definitely come to international festivals. I'm sure of that. The moment the peace agreement is signed and there will be an international poetic festival next day, the plane of our fleet will come full of Russian poets. I'm sure of that. I'm just trying to imagine the way it could happen in the future. Suppose the war is over and we have Ukrainian and Russian poets on the same stage. What are they talking about? What are they reciting? They're reciting sonnets about weather, about the God's power, or are they trying to read poetry about the experience, their own experience of what has happened? How realistic is it? How realistic it would be to imagine any sort of cooperation or any sort of contacts or interaction, of the German and Polish literatures, were it not for that Willy Brandt's gesture who kneeled in front of a Polish guy. How realistic it would be to imagine any interaction with the German arts, sports, economy, and politics, were it not for denazification, were it not for the Nuremberg trial and all those trials and processes that took place after the defeat of the Nazi Germany. So, of course, when the situation changes and when there is any point of change, point of transition in history, the first what will appear there will be the way of advocacy and it will be culture, Russian culture. Definitely, they will start performing the role of the platform or the bridge, the platform for removing the edges. Culture is universal to a certain extent, and that's why it's inherent in it. That it has such characteristics, and politicians are using it as some gray area where you could not talk about some serious things that cause conflicts. But it seems to me that in our situation, this is so far from us. This is in such distant future and so vague that it's just pointless to speak about that now. Any legitimization of the Russian presence, as for now, just underestimates everything that we are experiencing on a daily basis and the price that we pay on a daily basis to remain ourselves. That shows the ignorance of the destruction of our country as such, so it shows lack of appreciation. So it's not Russophobia, it's not about my own attitude to Russians. The whole point is that there is a great war aimed at our destruction. And if we want to win this war, we need to defend in every single aspect. And a cultural component, the cultural platform, is a very important component of this war. I think that the people who don't realize this, don't realize anything about the concept of the current Russia, where their libraries, their monuments to Pushkin, and their memorial tables are the markers of their presence, and they will just be using them to stay there.
And also, if I can add to that, it's not only the question about the strategy, but more about the tactics. How do we speak about that? If Ukrainian artists just say no, just deny participating in the international important events because Russian presence can be there, it means we just give them the ground, that's it, and we automatically lose. It's as if you're missing the football championship because Russian amateurs will be sitting on the will be present there and watching the Olympic Games or Paralympic Games when our sportsmen and women do win and get their medals. It's great, but saying hello or not saying hello to the Russian sportsmen and women, it's their own choice, I would say. I agree with Serhiy's words. I think that the problem about Russian culture there actually is that now this Russian culture, it's a pretext, it became the pretext to attack Ukraine. And this war, as long as it takes, it will damage the Russian culture more and more. And Russian culture will remain empty. There's nothing going to be left. And this is one of the issues. But thing I would like to highlight, if you don't speak to Russians, okay, that's okay, not an issue. Also, yes, I agree that's marker of imperialism, but I don't think that's a good situation. I don't think it's correct. But for now, we have to react to this situation, not just saying that, oh, I'm not talking to anybody at all, but know that we are building better culture, we're developing new culture with new partners, with a new world, new, better culture. Thank you. And my last question is, our event is called Index of the Future, and my last question about the optimism. I don't recall I was speaking to somebody about that. My generation, we have optimistic view and vision of the future and the victory in this war, but I think it's related to our own experience, to the experience of our generation when every time we won, we were winning and winning. The first, it was the revolution on the granite. We thought it was impossible. The square of a Lenin Komsomol that now became by Maidan. You see, now we even don't remember this revolution. No, it was the October Revolution, named after October Revolution. Then we won in the Orange Revolution, and then the Revolution of Dignity. So we have this experience of winning that doesn't let us lose our spirits. On the first day of war, we didn't even think that we might lose. But the first time I heard from Christiana Manpur, the thought that Ukraine may lose. She said, what if Ukraine's gone? And that was the biggest shock. Not the shellings, not the missile, but the fact that I heard on the Western television this thought, this remark. And I would like to hear from you what's your optimism is based on regarding our victory, our future. What's your basis when you're considering about the future? My optimism is based on the communication and exclusively on the communication with our society, with Ukrainians. When you see the strength, when you see this energy we have, we can say that we are extremely strong society. And talking about military men and women and civil population, when you see the inhabitants of Kharkiv, when having just the slightest possibility, they were coming back to their native city. They started to clean their fields, clean their backyards, because for them it was natural to stay in their ground, and this is their territory and their life they don't want to abandon. Not being ready to quit your life, I think it's a great justification to the great strength. And where is a strength, there is always a space to the future. I understand that maybe something I'm saying now sounds very abstract in an abstract way, but personally for me, I think that's the greatest reason, not just staying optimistic in situations like when your city is being shelled every day, but to be able to keep your equilibrium, to preserve your own ground, to maintain your own resources and capacity to move on and to work. So this everyday demonstration of strength and the possibilities by thousands and thousands of Ukrainians, I think this is where I take my inspiration. Timothy, your turn, please. Floor to you. If you allow me, the answer is I have cold and warm answer or hot answer, cold answer. Russia tends historically to lose wars. It's not going to be the first time. And after the Second World War, the empires lose wars. It's normal. It's absolutely normal. It's not only related to Soviet Union, but if you think about France or Great Britain or US, it's normal. This is what happens. And the third, and I'm going from the cold to the hot side. 2.5 years ago, I was sitting by myself with the three other experts of international affairs. Everybody was working either for Trump or for Obama offices. Everybody was speaking about the thing that Ukraine just has 3 days, and only me, I said, no, Zelensky will stay, and Ukrainians will move on. I was the only one to say that, and I really had my truth. And there is something about this people, about this society, that's with time, it's more and more obvious for us, foreigners. And I think that this is something that is hot or warm. And now I'm coming here back to the roots of index. The index was established as the same as Institute of Human Sciences 42 years ago. It was all about the thing that the West has to learn from the East. We didn't say that openly, but this is the way it was. And with index and documentation of Ukraine, it's the same thing. I'm learning from Ukrainians. I'm learning from Ukraine all the time. And this optimism is not only the word, probably it's not the exact word, but that's something that convinces me that this country will last, will live. Thank you. Thank you, Timothy Snyder, and to Serhiy Zhadan for this conversation. Thank you. Now, with Mr. Snyder, we're going to take our seats here in this hall, and we're going to listen the poetry of Serhiy Zhadan. So, Serhiy, the floor to you. Friends, what about you? Are you ready to listen to the poetry? How about you? Aren't you tired? How much time do I have? 2 hours? Ah, great. Half an hour? I'm not going to read you poetry. I'm going to read prose. That's a new book published a new book called Arabesque. It's not. I'm not just making the commercial announcement here, but yes, maybe. But from another side, it's a certain confirmation for me, so a certain illustration about how important it is to document, to speak about what's happening here and now, in order not to have these gaps tomorrow, these aberrations in our iterations, in our emotions, in our memories. When the war started, when the full-scale invasion started, in summer 2022, I was trying to write the novel about Kharkiv, about the first days of great invasion, but I understood something that is missing. At some point, I understood that the respiration is not going smoothly. Some things that's happening now, from the long-term perspective, because you start feeling tired, you cannot catch the breath, and you cannot keep up with the pace. So I think this is what's happening in our literature now. If you follow the updates, that's the time of report, of the diary, of the short texts and short reflections. And this is entirely new situation. We can ignore it, we can omit it, but this is what's happening. And everybody is keep on talking and talking about the appearance of a Ukrainian Hemingway or Remark or etc. etc. I think we shouldn't be expecting for them to appear. We will develop something new, our own. We will have our own pace and our distances, our own rhythm. I have written this book. I don't know what's the artistic value, but to record the micro stories, to record the voices of the common people that I've heard along the way, which I met, the people whom I met. This is what it's all about. But if you would like to listen, I can read you the short story here. For example, this one. So the story is called, "And then the Lord will call for woman." The spring was early, as if nothing happened. We were standing under the blue vast sky of the suburbs. It was quiet. We were listening to the silence in front of the house abandoned by the large family. Sunday morning, the street was empty. The tram rails stopped since February. The birds tearing the skies, falling from above, and they see our silence group, and they leave and flee towards the river. We wait, we keep ourselves warm. We see birds coming back. We thought that maybe spring is coming back. The weird life is going on, and it drags us down, like the shoes drag down the person under the water. Just one push and the light will disappear, and the entire city will disappear with its rails and its birds, and nothing will stop the fluctuations of the warm air of the clouds of the sun. But so for now, the stage of equilibrium still here, still present, when the winter abandons you like a dog, waiting for you to call it back. The wind blows, and everybody shows their faces under the sun, to the sun. You just want to stay still, not to move, to feel how the life is going on. merciless and gently. And then we turn our backs, we turn off our phones, and we move to the church, into the church. And we see the fire and the men trying to hid from that fire. Lots of men really came here to this churchyard. They were driving all night long. The men, mostly military, insecurely jam around the entrance as a schoolboys, like a schoolboys that have forgotten to do their homework and now they hope that the teacher won't spot them. Lots of people just don't know how to behave in the church, so just in case they behave like gentlemen, they move inside, they move closer to the priest, and I see Dina at once. And I see, oh, Dina is here, she managed. And somebody says, oh, somebody brought her at night. She didn't bring her kid. And Dina is in the middle of the women group. And the women surrounding her, whispering, as if giving something to her, hugging her. The priest is standing in the middle of the church, looking around the hush crowd. But at the end, he turns to Dina and he whispers in her ear. She says yes, agreeing. What else does she has to do? Priest, dry and skinny, wearing glasses, and when he quotes the holy Gospels, he doesn't know how to behave when he still can see the blood stains on his shoes, and he's walking around explaining to the people as if to the children in the museum, here and there turning his eyes to the belated person and to the coughing, just making sure this is really him. And you cannot recognize this person. Yellow face, his face changed. His arms put together, black and difficult on his chest, and the sign where the ring used to be on his finger, but people still treating him as if he was their commander still, and the women looking with grief. Death does unite people, does bring people together. Death is like a tram. Doesn't matter how did you get in. The most important, which is your stop. I think I should move in and to say hello to Dina, but then I think, what do I speak about to women? What I'm going to say, I just have to keep quiet and to listen. Everybody just listens and keep quiet. While the priest gives the candles and puts them into the fingers, and then he starts singing, and everybody hush and quiet, listening to his voice, looking, and people are looking around as if looking for their acquaintances and friends, and then turning their heads back to the priest, and the priest talking about the mercy and about the memory. Something he tries to explain, and something he tries to explain for us to understand, try to find some sense, common ground, but everything is lost compared to the death. It covers everybody with a cold mist and humidity. Everybody is inhaling the air with the melt candles. The smell of melt candles is mixing with the smell of wet shoes. They're looking under the tracks, the railway tracks, the tram tracks. They don't understand anything what priest is saying.
The priest also sees that nobody understands him, but he needs to speak. The presence of the dead presupposes that something important, something obvious needs to be talked about, something that will help you release the dead person with the ribs broken, covered by the white blanket. The priest looks across the church and starts speaking in a more trustful manner. questioning normally the women standing at the coffin as if being afraid for it, as if they having the intention to take it with them, together with the perished man in the white cover. I can notice that Dina, over the last 2 months since we saw her last, has changed a lot. She is as if in the shadow, and her color of the skin has become pale. She merges with the twilight around her now, but she has a dark dress that fits her well, even the spectacles, glasses behind which she would be supposed to keep her tears. She's tall, she's offended by life, and in the presence of the death, she's standing at the side of the coffin with her hand where she used to have the wedding ring, as if reminding everyone that she has the right to be standing there. Nobody denies her right. Everybody feels sorry for her, and the priest starts talking to Dina as if understanding who requires his words the most, and he's singing the most here. Dina is looking at the priest, accepting everything he says, and without denying it, as if let mercy have its way here, let memory have its way here. Tell everything that you need to tell in such cases. The priest is speaking and standing, a small, a desperate person, side by side with this woman, between her and us. Woman and between her and us. She's breathing heavily like an animal that has been chasing a victim, a prey. She removes the glasses, and her glance is something nobody can tolerate. All women are crying, looking at the dead man. Only Dina is not crying. She's watching, looking at him, and not crying. And it's intolerable. You feel an ardent desire to move outside, to breathe, and to speak. And let me notice that Dina is not looking at the dead man, not at his yellow face. She's looking to the side of the desk, where in the corner, somewhat isolated, there is another woman with a short hairdo. She's Anna. I was not closely acquainted with her, but over the last several months, starting with February, we have seen each other several times. She's in the military uniform, and she's watching Dina. She's watching everything with her green eyes, and nobody seems to be noticing it. Nobody seems to be noticing the way they look at each other, and they are looking around them with darkness around them. They look pretty much the same with their offense, with their despair, but at the same time, as they are so much different. Dina is looking at the desk the way the only heir is supposed to do it, with contempt and indecency, embracing all the years that are behind her, that her ownership nobody can ever take away from her, because it's her past, her secrets, her curses. And now, right from here, she will take them together with a coffin, and the whole story of her life with the dead man, which is 10 years old, is going to finally be completed, and then nothing will come, just the shadow of the dust, just the mercy and the memory, just two wedding rings on the fingers, her own wedding ring and that of the dead man. While Anna is looking at all this and trying to comfort herself and to find at least something to go on, she is trying to catch her right to love and not to be ashamed of it. Ashamed of her intimacy of the recent several years, and she's thinking that everything she used to have and to live on is being removed from her, because she doesn't have any single right to that, either the right to life, or the right to death, or to mercy, or to memory, because even her memory will be reconciled, will be concealed from everyone, from the wife of this husband, from his friends who have not become her friends, from those women whose names she doesn't know and wouldn't like to know. They recognize each other. They keep silent. They don't speak. They are waiting for the time when the dead body can be taken away, because Dina understands that it is her who will take the body, and Anna realizes this. She's always understanding this. The priest finally starts being silent, and he gives orders to men. Everybody walks out to the street, getting their smartphones and checking the incoming messages. Dina and Anna move in different directions and also take out the smartphones. Dina has got about two tens of 20 messages from friends. There is a call from the commander, missed, while Anna has just one incoming call from the mother who is asking her to give money to her account. Thank you. Is it enough, or shall I recite something else? Aren't you tired? Okay, so let me read another story to you.
Слухайте, доки мене ще один місяць.
Wait until another month will elapse. Even the dog had a different aroma of alien people. The mother told that she had bought it out the day before, and he was walking and breaking the glass. She was cautious, walking in the corridors. She was used to watching out to stay alive, in particular on her way from the subway. She understood that she shouldn't be afraid, but anyway, she was afraid all the time. And while going in the park or in the driveway, she understood that she was trying to just follow the path. But really, there was a lot of shampoo aroma in the bus. The dog was not accustomed to her, who was trying to hide himself behind the pillows, and she didn't understand why he was hiding away, because that was a different aroma, a different smell, somebody alien smell, the strangest smell. Nothing evoked emotions, but for the parts of wood or metal which hit her feet. Then she wanted to cry, but she didn't want to cry for people not to feel pity for her. She was just staying on the sofa together with the washed dog she was indignant about. She was watching movies and answering the mother's questions. The mother was trying to be tactful, but that was intolerable. She was trying to crack some jokes, and she asked her to have some rest, but she closed in the bathroom, staying there and just removing these parts of metal and wood from the floor. She gave clear answers to her mother's questions with no hysterics. 2 days of the leave of the vacation left. She was counting the days. She woke up earlier than she wanted to. That was her last day at home. Nowhere to hurry up. She could sleep longer. Over that period of time, she didn't arrange any meetings. She was just trying to arrange a free day. Okay, it's bad mood, but that is a dog whom you have treated, whom you have taken from the shelter. The dog is hiding away from you. The smell of the aroma is odor. The mother is getting the news about the neighbors who have died, and you actually hated those neighbors all your life long. But anyway, you don't have to wake up. You don't need to get up. You don't have children. You don't have husband. You don't have a job. Well, it was not pleasant to think about children, but she was thinking. She had a bad sleep, woke up early in the morning. The mother was cooking something nobody would ever eat, which was untasty, but she was trying not to make her awake. She was staying in bed for quite a long period of time for the mother not to call her to breakfast, but the mother was pretending that she didn't hear anything. She was cooking something, and then she took her bag and went to her workplace. On her way, she opened the door and she stopped at the threshold, listening to the silence, but she felt the pitfall, and she also caught her breath. She actually didn't show that she was awake. The mother went out, and then she got up, sat on her bed, and started enjoying the sunshine going through the curtain. An early morning, a long day. She went to the bathroom. There, for quite a long period of time, she was cleaning her teeth, doing something with her hair. This hair made her look young and not serious. Definitely not serious. She thought in an indignant way. She wanted to leave, but once again she had a look at the mirror and she saw that she actually liked herself, though at the same time she was dissatisfied with herself. Even the scar was not irritating her. A scar, a very nice one, about the shoulder, drawing attention. And she wanted to actually touch her skin, her light, nice skin. That was the feeling she hadn't had for a long period of time, as if light came again. Everything became clear, visible, and she got frustrated how she hadn't seen that for quite a period of time. Why didn't I see it before? She thought in an indignant, irritated manner and went to the kitchen. The dog was waiting for her, but the moment she entered, he hid away behind the pillows, and she started looking for what the mother had cooked. A lot had been cooked, so she was chewing something, feeling that it was tasty, and she was scolding her that she was not taking care of her slimness. The day was sunny, but it was so tasty. She wanted to stay in the kitchen, eating the mother's breakfast and being still offended by the whole world. And she also thought that it would be nice to invent something for the day, to do something, to meet someone, to go to the shop. But she imagined the street full of sunshine. She imagined herself standing amidst this sunshine, tall, noticeable, in civilian uniform, not in military uniform, in something bright and nice. And she decided not to leave, just to stay at home, to watch some serials and to wait for the message. Monday was normally the day for all the messages about the car that needed to be removed from the repairing station, about the guy who wanted to escape from the ward, and she had to give him a call, but he didn't pick up the receiver. She took the phones of the relatives of this guy, threatened someone, then didn't pick up the receiver because she was offended, and then gave back the calls and explained something. And after everything got settled, she went into tears all of a sudden. She was so sorry, and she felt so much pity for herself and also for the guy and for the mother. The mother was alone a lot of time, and the dog, well, she also felt pity for him, though he was such an awful dog. She felt sorry for everyone, and she had an imposing, obsessive feeling that everybody was actually having pity for her, and everybody was treating her in a non-serious way, as a desperate person. In particular, women giving calls all the day long and demanding something. But after that, mother came from her workplace and told that she saw the neighbor who actually was missing in action at the beginning of March. Nobody knew what had happened to him. But she, the mother, had a suspicion that he removed to that side and that he would never return. And here it is, said the mother. He just said that he stayed in a village of his brother, but he couldn't tolerate it any longer and went back. He went to the drugstore and bought some medicines, and he showed those medicines as if it was something like a panacea. But when I saw these medicines, I didn't understand how he generally could be alive, because these medicines are given only to the people who are almost dead. And did you get any medicines? No, I didn't. And what about now? Asked the mother. Now I have no medicines to take. Well, the mother had a bit of look after that, but she said nothing and started cooking again, commenting a series of the Turkish serial and kicking away the dog who was so active in the evening. She was listening to the mother, watching some TV show and a movie, and when the Turkish guys started sharing the heritage of some dead relatives and there was a conflict between two brothers, she couldn't tolerate it any longer. Listen, Mom. Why didn't you want to have any more children with my dad? The mother put away all the utensils and she wanted to say something like a joke, but she changed her mind. That's because I wanted just to hang myself with your dad. Don't be angry. Didn't he like children? Everybody likes children, said the mother. But not everybody wants to deal with the children. You're not dealing with your dog, I'm dealing with your dog. Okay, she got nervous. What's wrong? The mother was already silent, and she said, and what about children? She couldn't tolerate it any longer. She took a cup of tea and wanted to go back to her room and to slap up the door, but she decided that it would be a good reason for an argument, so she didn't do it, and she just went to bed um, in full clothing with her cup of tea, and she was waiting for any message coming from the smartphone. She wanted someone to give her a call to write. There was an unknown number, and she normally didn't pick up the receiver from unknown numbers. She didn't want to pick it up, but she picked it up. That was a female voice, tired, unsatisfied, which is normally the voice to share some problems, and she herself spoke that way. Do you know anything about Andrew? Andrew? Well, she got interested. I was told that you have been talking to the doctor about Andrew. So, what about him? He wouldn't undergo any treatment. How did it happen so that she's been staying here for the third day in a row in a blanket, feeling so sorry and offended by the whole world, as if the whole world was trying to create problems for her? What are her problems? She's got a dog, she's got a mother, and the dog has even been washed. They love her. She has her house, she has her room. Everybody needs her. She's settling a lot of issues. The world will stop if she's not there. She's giving calls, but giving calls not by the right people, and those who would be supposed to give her calls are not giving her calls. And who's this Andrew? She couldn't understand it. Well, look, she interrupted the voice talking about Andrew. Who are you? I'm his sister. Maybe you're talking about this little guy, the one who wouldn't like to undergo any treatment. He's your younger brother. Yes, he's my younger brother, so he has the nickname of small or young. Okay, I'll give him a call. He will agree to some treatment. Thank you, said the voice. I will give you the number of the card. What card? Bank card. Andrew's card? Or the little guy's card? No, my. Why do I need your card? What for? Well, the voice was at a loss. Okay, goodbye. Don't give any more calls. What else shall I do? Should I adopt her? I should probably give a call to the little guy, to Andrew, whose nickname was Little Guy, and scold him. And I have to wear my things, to pack everything into the rucksack and leave. She felt as if it were not her. She just hid herself in the blanket, closed her eyes, and thought that another summer is elapsing. And in the summertime, everything looks so much big and so unrealistic, but you can forget about it because when you close your eyes, it may disappear without the moment. And this long, long spring, which led to exhaustion, and when everything changed, where the evening when she didn't get the call, though it's so easy just to pick up the receiver and to give a call to someone. What could be easier than staying in the darkness and not thinking about cold hotel rooms, somebody else's apartments, trust, rigidity, the attempt to connect things that are uncombinable, about the unprotected sex and about all the unprotected vulnerability that popped up in her life with his appearance. Summer will go on. Everything will be as it used to be. Everything will be fine. She will stay among close people. She will do the things she is accustomed to. She will finally come down, help the little guy to pick up the car and find from the repair shop. And then tomorrow, those months will start. Then she switched off the light, went back to the bed, and started falling asleep. The dog came and started lying in close to her, and the menstruation did not start.
Serhiy
Serhiy
Zhadan,
Zhadan,
Myroslava
Myroslava
Barchuk,
Barchuk,
Timothy Snyder.
Snyder.
Thank you very much.
Дякую вам.
It's a great honor
Вашої
to
співпраці. Дякую
live with you in the same times.
був з нами.
Thanks for everybody who came here.
Дорогі сучасники,
Dear community, thank you
дякую за віру
for
в те,
believing in
що
us.
все вийде.
Thanks to our partners, the Institute of Humanitarian Sciences in Vienna, Center of City History, Lviv City Council, the Khartiia Radio, and to Armed Forces of Ukraine, thanks to whom we can live, we can witness, and we can act. Thank you.